Hello and welcome to my little world. I wanted you to notice my sweater that I'm wearing today. I made this sweater in the last year. I finished it up at the end of the year, and I made this little matching bunny to go with it that I'm just wearing around my neck. So I made big checks on one side and little checks on the other side, so it's reversible if I want to wear it. And then the bunny has the big and little checks as well, so it's fun. So I'm going to finish my story about Priscilla, the ballerina mouse, this week. And this story I never finished, like so many things in my life. Being an artist, I started so many things and finished many fewer than the things I started. But even now, so many years later, I'm sort of finishing some of the things I started, and I never imagined when I was writing things that I would be reading them on a video instead of publishing them as books. So because of that, I had illustrations drawn for all of the first chapter, which I read last week. But I just had a few drawings that I had for the second chapter or the rest of the story. So I'm going to read the rest of the story to you today, and then I will insert the few little drawings that I have to go with it. So Priscilla went to bed last week knowing that she would be dancing on the stars in her dreams. The next morning, she made excuses to her mother about going out to play. It was summer and she wouldn't have to be back until dark. She swung by Russell's house and pulled him away from his breakfast. "Come on, let's go," she ordered. "First, we have to stop by Aunt Mary's house," she explained once they were on their way down the lane. Russell was used to being the boss when it came to adventures, so it surprised him for Priscilla to be giving orders. But he could see that this was important to her, so he didn't mind following along. Besides, there would probably be more popcorn lying around from the night before. Aunt Mary was known all about the Hollow as a collector, a veritable pack rat, though no one would have said it aloud. Rats are very nasty creatures, so no self-respecting mouse would say such a thing. Still, there it was. Aunt Mary came bustling out of the back room. She wasn't really Priscilla's aunt. Everybody just called her that for sentimental reasons. She had her hands held high. "I've got just the things," she exclaimed, displaying some brightly colored balloons. "A little snip here, a hole there," she went on hastily, working as fast as she talked. Priscilla wasn't too sure, but she stretched her neck and popped her head through. And it did seem that the balloon made a fine leotard. "Nice and stretchy," said Aunt Mary as she pushed Priscilla's back over so her paws touched her toes. "Perfect!" The necks from two other balloons made good leg warmers. "Thank you, Aunt Mary," Priscilla said politely. "And remember, not a word to my parents. It's a surprise." Priscilla and Russell crept through the hole in the wood just as the dancers were beginning their warm-up. Priscilla glanced anxiously around. "Go get that toothpick," she said, pushing Russell toward a small stick lying on the floor. Russell brought it back and wedged it between two nails in the wall. "That's it," Priscilla exclaimed, clasping the makeshift bar. She watched the dancers carefully, imitating every move. Russell sat down against the wall, munching popcorn and watching. "You're pretty good," he said when the exercises were finished. Priscilla did a pirouette and a curtsy. "Thank you," she beamed. Priscilla attended practice every day, and every night she fell into bed imagining the day when she would be ready to perform for an audience. The dancers were not performing anymore, but they seemed to be getting ready for a new production to be performed at the end of the summer. Priscilla followed the prima ballerina's moves closely, imitating each one. She even got Russell to stand in for the man. He refused to try any leaps or steps, but he was a good spotter when she did a difficult jump or an arabesque. Priscilla went to see Aunt Mary again. A blue balloon, cut smaller than her others, a little girl's fancy barrette, some blue ribbons, and Priscilla had her costume. All except for one thing. Aunt Mary didn't have anything like a tiara. "We'll get one somehow," Russell reassured Priscilla, but he wasn't at all sure how. The end of the summer was fast approaching. So one night, Priscilla took a deep breath and announced to her parents, "I have a surprise for you. Next Friday night, I would like to take you to the theater. Will you come?" Father frowned a little. "You want to take us to the theater? Why, what for?" "There's a production going on there right now, and I thought you might like it. They have lovely music, too." "Well, all right. An evening at the theater sounds like a nice family thing to do," he agreed. Priscilla winked at Russell and smiled broadly at her parents. Later, though, the smile was gone. "I don't know what I'm going to do, Russell. I just have to have a tiara to complete my costume. I just have to," she moaned. The two friends went out exploring. They found a button, a bottle cap, a flower, and a watering hose ring, but nothing looked right for a tiara. "I can't dance tonight without a tiara. Who ever heard of a prima ballerina without a tiara?" "Maybe I'll just take my parents to the People Ballet," she said unhappily. "You can't do that," Russell protested. "You've been working all summer for this. Your parents won't notice if you don't have a tiara." "But I'll know, and it just won't be the same." "I'm so disappointed," Priscilla sighed. "Well, I'm sure someday you'll have a tiara," Russell offered hopefully. Priscilla hung her head. "I so wanted one for tonight." Priscilla's parents were dressed in their finest and ready on time. Priscilla wore her costume under her clothes, and Russell brought her tutu and waited to meet her at the theater. She was very nervous. As the orchestra tuned up, Priscilla's parents seated themselves in the box Priscilla and Russell had prepared for them. Priscilla excused herself for a moment and met Russell behind a loose board in the wall. She quickly shed her clothes and pulled on her tutu. "Russell, what are you looking at?" she asked, wondering why he suddenly turned his face up and seemed to be staring at something. His eyes had followed the curve of a tall green bottle standing a few feet away from them until they reached the top, where they had stopped and were now transfixed. "Look!" he exclaimed. Priscilla followed his gaze, stopping when she reached the silver label circling the top of the bottle. Before she could say a word, Russell had run headlong into the bottle, knocking it over. He ran to the lip, pulling the silver ring from its neck. Marching back to Priscilla, he placed it on her lowered head. She smiled joyfully and her eyes glistened. "Go break a leg," Russell ordered in theater talk. Priscilla leaped before her parents as the opening strains of the ballet were sounded. The stars twinkled their approval in the night sky behind her, and when she jumped, it appeared as though she was truly dancing on them. Her parents could not have clapped louder or faster as they applauded her last turn. All of Mouse Hollow turned out to see the next night's performance, and the next. Sam the Bear and Annabelle and the River Frogs joined the theater orchestra with their music. And Priscilla just went on dancing and dancing and dancing. The end.